Hi, my friend, and welcome to the Good Girl Syndrome Show. I am so excited for this episode that is brought to us by the beautiful Sophie. Sophie wrote to me explaining to me that she just realized a few days ago that she constantly changes who she is depending on who she's spending time with. So she was expressing how, I'll read it in just a little bit. She was explaining to me that at work, she's one person. When she's with her husband, she's one person. If there's someone around her, a specific type of friend, she's super funny. With another type of friend, she's very quiet and agreeable. Like, depending on who she's around, she truly becomes a different person. That's what she says, at least. And she's asking me why she's constantly adapting like that. And two, how does she stop doing that? So if you have something similar going on in your own life, or you're just interested in the topic, I highly recommend that you keep on watching because this is going to be very useful for you. If you do not know me, by the way, my name is Vander Meulen. I used to be a researcher and now I'm an empowerment coach for high achieving women. And I have developed a concept called Good Girl Syndrome, hence the Good Girl Syndrome show that you're watching now. If you've not subscribed yet, by the way, I think now is your time to subscribe. And I talk about anything to do with good girl syndrome. So people-pleasing tendencies over, high-achieving tendencies, over adaptation tendencies like we're talking about today. Any type of pattern that is holding you back from living a life that actually feels fulfilling for you, right? So good girls have a tendency to do what they think they should be doing, right? A lot of shoulds, a lot of obligations in their life. And because they're trying to be everything to everyone. But inside, a lot of us, I'm going to include myself in that, we have a tendency to not do what we truly want, to sometimes not even know what we truly want or who we truly are, just like our friend here, Sophie, or what we actually need. And so every type of content, every type of product, or every type of service that I offer has to do with that. Every single thing has to do with that. I have a lot of free resources for you. The Good Girl Syndrome show that you're watching now is one of them. I also have a Sunday Sanctuary newsletter every single week. You can go, so we have a topic in the Good Girl Syndrome show per week, right? And I do a few episodes per week on that topic in different formats. And then every single Sunday, I take that same topic and I give you introspective exercises so that you can actually apply what we learned during the week. And then I have a Good Girl Syndrome quiz that's completely free if you want. So you can go check all the resources in the description box below and you'll find all my free resources and all my paid resources if you're interested as well. With that said, I think we should start. So here's what Sophie wrote to me. She says, I've started noticing something recently and it's making me quite uncomfortable. I feel like I'm a different version of myself depending on who I'm with. Around some friends, I'm very funny. Around others, I'm extremely thoughtful. Around certain other people, I'm very confident. With others, I become quiet and agreeable. At work, I'm one person. With my family, I'm another. With my husband, I'm another. Sometimes I genuinely wonder who I really am when nobody else is around. She asks me 2 questions. Why do I adapt so much? And how do I stop? First of all, thank you so much, Sophie, for writing to me and for sharing that part of your inner world with me and with every one of us here. I think it's really beautiful, and I think it's also something that a lot of us can relate to. I for sure can very much relate to that. I spent most of my life over-adapting to any single person that I was around. I was actually talking about that in the previous episode, in the Sunday episode. I'll put the link. It'll be the second link in the description box if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about me and how I was always shape-shifting. That's the Sunday episode. My friend, I think I want to start a little differently. I think I want to start with what you said below. You said, sometimes I genuinely wonder who I really am when nobody else is around. If we were in a coaching session and you were in front of me now, I would have interrupted you and I would have said, so who are you really? Sophie, who are you really when no one is around? And you would probably take a few seconds to, wonder who you are. And then I'd encourage you to tell me every single thing that pops in your mind. It can be different moods that you have. It can be how you feel when, I don't know if you like to dance, I love to dance, but when you're dancing, when you're reading, when you're watching your favorite TV show, I don't know if you like to cook, I don't know if you like to walk or be in nature, or if you have pets or if you have kids, or you mentioned you have, you are married, you have a husband, like I would ask you to go and check, like you could sort of start it here. You made a little list of different versions of you that you can become when you're around people. I would highly recommend kind of look at yourself as a, how can I say, as a mosaic or like a kaleidoscope. I don't know how you pronounce that in English, but that you're like a multitude of different things. Like there's many, many facets to you. And I think one of the fallacies of our world is to think that we are one, that there's one identity that we have. And why I say that it's a fallacy is because, one, I don't know if you notice about yourself, but me for sure, I have 20 personalities. If I'm hungry, I'm one type of person. If I'm tired, I'm one person. If I'm feeling really, really well, I'm a different person. If I'm around, like you said, around specific friends, I'm one person. If I'm dancing, I'm one person. Like I have so many, many moods. And it doesn't always have to be that I'm over adapting to other people. It's just that I think as human beings to begin with, right? Let's start with this. We are many, many different things. And I think sometimes it can be disempowering to try to be one thing. Because then if that's what you think, if your expectation is that you should always be this one thing, and you should always feel the same way, and you should always behave the same way, and always have the same types of thoughts, I think, and I'm guilty of that too, of having that type of thing where I get very, very hard on myself and I have very strict expectations of myself. I think the risk with that, Sophie, is you will feel miserable for being human. You will hate being human, and you will have crazy expectations of yourself, basically, which I think is something that is not very helpful. And I think if you're open to it, I think we should drop that. Both you and me and anyone else who's watching, I think we should drop that expectation to just be one person. Now, with that said, if you are allowed to be many different things and many different people, then what comes through for you? Like when you think about it, who are you really? And so you or whoever's watching, make a list of that. It can be mentally in your own mind, or it can also be, you can write. You see me with my beautiful notebooks here. I love writing stuff, old school. So I would really recommend, if you want to pause this, or if you want to keep listening to me and see, throughout this episode, who's coming through, like what different parts of you are coming through, I would highly encourage you to go through these different things. Now, the other thing that I would say, besides the fact that you can be many different people when you are on your own, is I would also encourage you to look at, who are you? How can I say that? Like, what's the version of you that exists when you are on your own and no one else knows that this part of you exists? So I don't know if I said that in a really understandable way, but basically what I'm trying to see is, we know that you can be multiple people. I know you're aware of the different versions of you that you are around other people. What I'm wondering about is, are there versions of you that other people have no idea exist? So, for example, for me, for a very, very long time, no one around me knew that I had a faith, that I was a spiritual person. No one was aware of that. Not even my family. No one was aware of that for many, many years. It was something that was so important to me, like one of the core principles of my life. And yet no one in my life knew about that, because I was afraid of their judgment, and because I didn't want them to come into the space and just with their thoughts or with their questions and so on and so forth. I wasn't ready to share that part of me with other people. And I also felt like some people, like I said, I was a researcher before in Belgium. And so at least how I perceived things back in the day, a few years ago, was that me having faith and believing in something greater than me in a university that is secular, that I would have been judged as less smart than, or woo, or some of these types of things. So I'm just sharing this one thing with you because I'm thinking perhaps you have something like that, like something that is huge about you, something that is important to you, or a version of you that is very, very important to you, that you feel like you need to hide from the world, or that perhaps you don't feel so comfortable sharing, or perhaps that you're even hiding from yourself, right? Something that you don't feel you're allowed to be, or whatever it is. Just go deep inside yourself and find the different layers that make you you. And that would be my first invitation to you in all of this, because you were asking me, you were saying, I don't really know who I am. And I think the answer to that is not something complicated. It is something that is, it is complex in the sense that you will be multifaceted, and that is phenomenal. And I think you opening up to that idea and going on a journey to discovering who you are or rediscovering who you are is going to be magical, because you will see just after this session here that we're doing together, you will already find all sorts of beautiful or less beautiful aspects of yourself, right, that you will write down. But because you will now have that focus, we've been having this conversation, you and me, now you will see that you will be open to seeing more and more things about you. Perhaps you will go, I don't know, you will go to the cinema tonight, and then when you're at the cinema, you see a superhero and you feel that surge of courage, like, hadn't felt that in a while, like that's also part of me. Reminds me of when I used to climb in trees or whatever it is for you, right? But so really allow yourself to feel all those different aspects of you. It's a beautiful moment of reconnection. And you can also do that with ChatGPT, by the way. I don't know if you like using AI. If you do, I use it in my coaching sessions. I often create prompts specifically for my clients and what they're going through, so that in between sessions, usually women come to me once a month, because it's a long session. It's like a 2-hour session. They prepare before, they write something down afterwards. And so they have a little bit of time to process what we've gone through and make their own progress. And so I usually give them prompts, AI prompts, so that they can continue their introspective work. So perhaps that's something you can do for yourself as well, to be like, okay, chat, help me out. I want to discover myself, explain the situation and say, I want to discover myself even more. What aspects of myself do I love? What are aspects that I'm hiding? What are aspects? And ask it to ask you many introspective questions. And I think you will be amazed at what you will find. So that is one thing. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is when you said, I feel like I'm a different version of myself depending on who I'm with. There were two aspects of that I wanted to touch on. The first thing is the part that I want to say is normal, and it's even a sign of intelligence, emotional intelligence. I think that because if you're a good girl, if you're watching this, you probably are a good girl, or someone who has these types of tendencies to be very hard on themselves and to see things in black or white when it comes to you or to life when you get negative. I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to relate to others differently. Depending on who I'm with, there's other aspects of me that will come forth. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily hiding parts of myself or that I'm enhancing parts of myself. It's just that, for example, if I'm with my fiance Spencer, there tends to be a part of me that is very playful and giggly, and there's a part of me where this man really grounds me. He's very calm, right? And he really grounds me. And so there's two aspects of me that come up very, very much when I'm with him, just because these are the things that he provokes in me, and these are ways that we have of relating to one another. Playfulness tends to be something that is always with me, but groundedness is not always something that I have. It's something that comes, it is in me, it is part of me. I am not, becoming someone else to be with Spencer, my fiance, but it is being triggered, if I can say it like that. It is triggered by this beautiful man that I get to spend my life with, right? He has this energy to him, and it kind of brings that out in me as well. And so perhaps that's part of what is happening with you as well, right? Perhaps it doesn't have to be something wrong, right? Perhaps there's also something right in that, which is it's what humans do. And two, it's also a sign of emotional intelligence because, for example, there's people that you can feel. For example, if someone is in a terrible mood, you will then automatically know that there's some specific ways that you will relate to that person. Or if someone, perhaps a better example is, if someone is going through grief, they're extremely sad right now. So I'll probably bring a little bit of my playfulness at times when I think it's appropriate, but most of the time that's not where I will be. I will be in a compassionate mode. I will be in a more calm mode. I will be in a more reassuring mode, right? I will bring out a different part of myself than I do if I'm, let's say I'm going dancing with my friends and, it's it feels like a party and I'm super excited. It's I will be bringing out different parts of me depending on the situation. and depending on who is in front of me and how they're feeling in the moment. And I think that's a sign of emotional intelligence. And so I imagine you know that, but just because we have a tendency as good girls to be very hard on ourselves, I just want to make sure that you don't conflate the two. Like there's a part of this that just means you have very good people skills, which most good girls do. So that's, that's at least some good news for us, right? Now, on the other side of that, I think you were right that also, like, two things can be true at once, right? That you can both be highly emotionally intelligent, and sometimes that can come in your way because you're over adapting because you're trying to achieve something. So you were asking why you are over adapting. I would say there's two big reasons. I'm sure there's more, but for the sake of simplicity and keeping this episode at a normal type of length, I would say there's two big reasons why you would be. And if we were in a coaching session again, I would be asking you to ponder on which one it is for you, or if it's both of them. I think one of the reasons why we do that, we adapt, is because we deeply, deeply need and want to be liked by the people around us. And so it's just, again, just human, just normal to a certain extent. But some of us, it's like everything to us. If we are not liked, if we feel disliked by others, it's a horrible sensation. We feel completely unloved. We cannot function. We overthink this thing for the next few weeks or the next few days or the next few years. I don't know, right? But like, this is like a core wound for us. And so if that is your case, that what you were saying here, that with some friends you're like that, with some friends you're like that, with your husband you're like this, if the reason for this is you desperately want to be liked and you adore when people find you, super agreeable and give you compliments and all of that, and you can't, like, the perspective of someone not liking you is horrifying to you, then I would imagine that there's a wound behind that of, who didn't like you when you were little or when you were growing up? Did you have many of these experiences where people didn't like you and you suffered as a result of that? It's something you can do in therapy, by the way. Like if you're interested in seeing what's your story with being liked and why you need that so much. Another way to do things, like what I do is coaching and mentoring, but therapy is also a parallel type of discipline that is absolutely phenomenal for these types of things. And to go, deeper into what happened to you and, how you coped with it and so on and so forth. So that could be a good option to go see what happened there, because that would be one of the things that happened to you and that you're trying to achieve here by shape-shifting depending on who is right in front of you. The other option is a little darker, which is you're doing this to keep yourself safe. They can be related, right? So if, for example, you were bullied when you were little, or not little, when you were, when you were a teenager, or even when you were in college, or whatever your experience is, these are traumatic experiences that make us feel both unloved and unsafe, right? This is one type of experience. It can also be something in your family. Perhaps you were abused or verbally abused or emotionally abused. I don't know, in your family, in your surroundings, at school, by your friends, by, I don't know by who, right? And so there, the sensation would be not just, I need to be liked, but I desperately need to be safe. And being me feels unsafe, right? Like that's the shortcut that is in your mind. And so in that case, it's not just that you're highly emotionally intelligent and you know how to adapt to different situations and different people. It's that on top of that, you have that. Plus, you are also hiding who you really are because you are afraid of showing yourself, because you've associated this bad experience or multiple bad experiences of being your true self to then having some sort of pain related to that. And so you never want to do that again. So I don't know what's true for you in all of that, right? But I think that's worth asking yourself the question. Do I feel like it's unsafe to be me? Right? Is it a yes or a no? You will know. If it's a no and you're like, no, it doesn't feel unsafe, I just really, really like to be liked. Okay, cool. Then, we move to that one. And if it's, I feel unsafe, then I would, if you've never done therapy before, then if that is your scenario where you feel unsafe by being you, then I would highly recommend you go to therapy and go what happened there and go unpack that so that you can release that experience and start building, a new path for yourself. I think you can build a new path for yourself anyway, even if you don't go to therapy and even if you don't go and do this deep dive about yourself. But I think to a certain extent, you will continue to live through that story if you don't unpack it and you don't integrate it and you don't make it your own in a way that is empowering. To say that because of that bad experience or those bad experiences, I would never wish that on anyone else, but I can't change my past. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to accept that this happened, and I'm going to accept that I am never going to go through this experience again. And I'm going to redefine what that experience meant for me. Like, what did it mean about me? Perhaps it just meant that these people were just me. It doesn't have to mean anything about me and my value and anything like that, right? So that's the type of thing that you want to be going towards if you're interested in that. The last thing that I want to talk about is your questions. So you said, why do I adapt so much? And I think I responded to that in a kind of short way. And then you asked me, how do I stop? So how do I stop adapting? What I would say about this is the first thing that I would invite you to do is, I find it very hard to stop doing things, but I find it much easier to start doing things or to do more of something that I already do. And I think here, to me, the question is not whether you need to stop adapting yourself. You can try, you can be in an environment, and when you feel like saying something extremely nice to someone that actually you don't like, you can stop yourself, right? So that's one option. And that's also a skill, so you can learn from that. But I think that the beautiful thing to do here, my friend, would be to bring all of you to the table. I think that what you are not doing right now is the solution to what we're talking about. I think that the solution to all of this is to stop cutting yourself. So if you think about this, if you're you feel unsafe, so unsafe to show yourself. And so you only show the versions of yourself that you think are going to be acceptable in this moment by this specific friend or this specific person or this specific environment. What you're basically doing is you're not just adapting to the person, to the situation, but you are also it's like you're removing, it's like you're erasing a part of yourself, which is an extremely painful experience that you are now inflicting upon yourself, right? There's good reason for it. I understand that there's a pattern, there's a wound and there's a pattern that you created as a way to protect yourself. Completely understand that, have a lot of compassion for you for that. I have the same type of patterns that I've had to work through and heal, and this is not serving you. This is not serving you. You cutting parts of yourself. Can you imagine, if you visually understand what that means? Can you imagine that, your personality is this beautiful book here, and then I'm looking at this book and I'm like, so this I'm gonna remove, and this I'm gonna remove, and this I'm gonna how painful is that? What a horrible way to treat ourselves, right? I'm not judging you. I'm not saying this to make you feel bad about yourself. I'm saying this in a way to say, don't do that. If there was anything to stop doing, it's to stop cutting pieces of yourself. I would say learn to bring all of you to the table. It is normal, right? Hear me when I say this. It is normal for you to have different aspects of yourself. That's completely normal. What is less than ideal is you removing them when you're in front of people. So I can be here with you and be all of me, and some parts of me today will be more present than others, and I'm completely okay with it. Today I'm feeling very peaceful. I'm feeling a little, a chill type of vibe, and this is what is going to come through, right? But I could say, part of me before, I would have been jumping around for 10 minutes to be in a, cranked up energy and be super excited and do this episode and deliver it in the same way, always in the same way, in the same energy, because that was my expectation of myself. Now that's not what I do anymore, right? Now I'm thinking I am a complex, multifaceted human being, just like you. And I have moods, right? So sometimes I'm very peaceful, like today. Sometimes I'm extremely joyful. Sometimes I'm very playful. And all of these different aspects of me are going to shine through. And that's a beautiful thing. So that means I can bring all of myself to the table and still trust that even when I'm playful, last week, for example, if you watch the episodes from last week, I was feeling extremely playful when I was filming. I don't know, I was feeling silly. I hadn't seen my fiance for 2 months because he lives in the US. I was about to see him. So I was extremely playful and excited and super happy. Now I'm a little jet lagged, right? And my energy of last week, even though I was talking about very serious and dark and deep topics, I was feeling very playful, and I could still be emotionally intelligent and give space to the people that I was talking to and to the show and to what I was saying, and still bring my playful self to it, right? I do not cut myself anymore. I bring all of me to the table, and I believe that exactly who I am, right, is exactly what the person in front of me needs. Like, that's the thought. Exactly how I am, like who I am exactly, and how I'm feeling, like my mood is exactly what the person in front of me needs. And I'm also trusting myself, right? I trust myself to know, like, I'm like emotionally intelligent enough to also know how to behave in front of specific people in specific circumstances in specific moods. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like a mix of being fully yourself and using your emotional intelligence. And I think what you're doing fantastically already is you seem like you're very, very, very highly emotionally intelligent. So that part is phenomenal. Now, the only thing is, stop removing yourself. Like, just because you think people need specific things from you doesn't mean that you can't bring the rest of you to the table, right? All of you should always be there, unless you don't feel safe. Then that's a different question. But yeah, that's what I would do. So I wouldn't say you need to stop anything. I would just say you should start, right? If you wanted to, you should start bringing more of you to the table. And that can happen, little bit by little bit by little bit. It doesn't have to be, tomorrow it will be a chaos in your mind doing that. But I don't know, tomorrow you can express a thought that normally you wouldn't. Or when you're feeling silly and you're in a serious environment, perhaps you can show a little bit of that. Or if you're feeling sad and everyone else expects you to be super excited, perhaps you can, just come as you are and just, see what happens. And my experience has been, I don't know about you, sometimes I haven't been met the way that I wanted to, but most of the time I find that actually most people have some degree of emotional intelligence and they can recognize the moods that I have. And so they will, if I'm feeling more sad or if I'm feeling more this or more that, there's always someone. It doesn't have to be everyone, but there's always someone who can relate to me because I'm in this specific mood. And they could not relate to me, for example, when I was super excited. And I find that extremely interesting, how we relate to others and how being more and more and more of ourselves in all of our moods and in all of our different, shades and colors and, layers and so on, it allows other people to connect even more deeply with us than when we are performing and we are being who we think they want us to be or who we think they need us to be. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. I hope this was really useful for you and helpful. I really enjoyed thinking about this. Thank you again, Sophie, for the beautiful, beautiful question. If you are watching this and you are not Sophie and you would also like for me to answer your question, or you want to explain a situation to me, you are very welcome to do so. You can look at the description box below. You will see that there is a link to a Google form. That's better. See, playful. So there's a Google form that you can fill in with your questions. And in the next few weeks, I'll make sure to answer that and make it the topic for the week. With that said, thank you so very much for watching. I appreciate you. And I will see you on Friday for the ASMR episode. Bye, my friend. See you soon.